We duct taped the whole thing together, but here we are for episode 1 of the Last Poll podcast. I'm here with my guests, Sab and Rose. Very happy to have both of them. I guess we can, I don't know if it's guests or co-hosts, whatever. We're all here. I put the screen. I put everything on the screen. It works. So welcome, everybody. This was kind of inspired because I just wanted to have more conversations with more people. And Sab also said the same thing. And then Sab was like, I know a guy. We should ask Rose. And I had watched some of Rose's videos and I thought they were really funny. And I thought, yeah, I mean, who better to have on for a first episode? So welcome to you both. And here we are.
Glad to be here. Looking forward to it. I'm a little scared, but excited at the same time.
Yeah, just about the same. Yeah, it's I think the first time I've been on a podcast. So yeah,
that actually really surprised me. I think your stuff is shared a lot in the Guild Wars 2 community. Your one video that has over 250,000 views or whatever is shared relentlessly. People love it. Is it the simp one where you're like, why does everybody simp for Guild Wars 2? Everyone loves that video. They think it's hilarious. And I would agree. I think it's really, really good.
Yeah, except for Reddit. They got real mad at me for that one.
Yeah, but Reddit will get mad about literally everything.
Is it somewhat ironic? Because isn't it Reddit that sent you to like give Guild Wars 2 a chance in the first place? Because you said you were expecting negativity and it was overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, it was kind of disgusting going onto Reddit and seeing people being positive.
And then you make a video showing the game in a good light, and Reddit just rips you apart.
Yeah, I think it's more down to the fact that I called Reddit circle jerking mod incels, and then that like
that'll get them.
Funny enough, that video got taken down for the first 3 days before I appealed it.
So I've had a lot of people ask me lately, as far as like where you come up. I know the first time we talked off stream, I had the same question: is where do you come up with the insults? Where do you come up with the phrases? I remember what your response was, but I'll let you share. For example, what you just said: circle jerking mod insults. Where does the inspiration for the words come from? The creativity?
It's literally in my head. I just don't like, my brain never really switches off. And I've got like 6 parallel channels of things going, and it's all how do I fuck with people. So like I can't help it. It just needs to come out somehow. So I just, every time I see something that can potentially upset someone in some way or might be funny, I have to say it.
I mean, I think it's good content.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the start off while we were getting ready, you already took what, like 4 notes? Are you constantly taking notes of like, oh, that's something I can do. That's something like, are you always just taking notes of what to add to the video? And do you like refer to those notes later on and have like a list of things?
But it's more like mental notes, and it's like, generally speaking, if I'm making mental notes about something, if it's something memorable enough, I'll remember it later and then add it in. And if it's not, then it kind of gets like thrown out with everything else. Think of my mind kind of like an open sewage drain.
Have you guys ever watched those videos that pop up on social media, on YouTube and stuff, where it's like the guys are making a killing, guaranteed, but all they do is they go and they just like flush out sewage pipes and stuff. And it's extremely satisfying to watch because they're like, oh, here it comes. And then the clog just like explodes out of this pipe and and they clear the whole thing. Have you guys ever seen that stuff? Why is that stuff so popular?
I see it down here all the time with the tires getting dragged through like the culverts and the ditches.
Yeah.
You'll have an entire yard flooding and some guy's like, watch this. And he throws a chain around a tire and just pulls it through the ditch. And gotta say, what comes out the other side gives me PTSD from eating MREs for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Anyway, I have tons of questions. I'm sure we're gonna have a really good conversation. But I think Sab, you're relatively new to content creation from the streaming perspective, but you've had a community for quite some time now. And Rose, I know you've been doing videos for a couple years at least, or a year or two.
Yeah, I kind of did videos just because I felt like it and I wasn't really taking it seriously. And then I decided, you know, maybe I should just give it a try. Maybe I should put in like a mild amount of effort, and then it just kind of went from there. So I think I started off streaming, and I just kind of did streaming so that I could like talk to like 2 or 3 people and be entertaining there. And I realized my schedule is just too chaotic for me to be consistent enough. And then I was like, you know what? The problem with the stream is that like it's there for however many hours you're online, and then it's gone forever. So I was like, you know what? I can do something else. I can put it on YouTube and I can stream whenever I feel like it. So that's what I decided to do.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that that do that or have that same mindset too. I know for myself, I've heard that you're a dad, and know Sab's a dad, and I'm a dad. I have 2 young daughters, one's 4, one's 2, and I know that.
My condolences.
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally screwed, man. I'm way outnumbered here. It's gonna be bad. But I know that for myself, years ago, before or when I only had one kid, or when my kid was really young, and it was a pandemic, it was really easy to stream consistently. But then it kind of, I've had to cut back quite a lot. So I totally get where you're coming from there.
I like that point. How you said, when you're live streaming on Twitch, it's there for that period of time. And you've got VODs, but people don't really hunt them down. I don't think people really systematically go through and watch them because that's a long time, especially if they want to catch you live. So that's something I've immediately noticed because I've been on Twitch for a little over 4 months, 2 weeks, and Twitch consumes so much of your time that I have found it very, very hard to peel away from an opportunity to stream, to sit down and like clip a video or find clips, edit videos, upload videos. So that's something I'm gonna have to find a way to deal with. Whereas you when you're streaming, is it just kind of for fun while you're exploring other things and other ideas? Because I've been watching a lot of your second channel where you just straight up upload your VODs, and I don't know how to balance that so far. Like, because I'm also not streaming with the intent of like making YouTube content, but it seems like YouTube is a better investment of your time, because every single time I have like 2 or 3 hours to spare, I just want to stream. I haven't been putting any of that time towards putting stuff out there that's going to stay out there.
Yeah, so it's kind of like people go to Twitch because they want to interact with you, right? If you're going to Twitch, it's because you're gonna find someone who wants to interact with you. Or at least that's been my general experience of it. If you put something up on YouTube, they can still interact with you through like comments and stuff like that. So there's like a VOD on Twitch, but there's no comment section. There's no one who's really going to sit there and like watch a whole stream. Maybe they'll jump to certain parts or certain segments. But if you've got something that's far more permanent, it's a lot easier to then have people discover who you are and then jump over to Twitch if they want to have a conversation with you and you just so happen to be live. Like you can't, unfortunately, there's only so many hours in a day, so you've got to like balance out exactly what you're doing. And you've got to have at least like a basic plan for both. And with that said, my Twitch streaming plan is dog shit. I have no idea what I'm doing. I turn on my camera when I feel like it. I shrug my shoulders. I'm like, okay, I'm going to play this game and say some stuff. And then people showed up. Yeah.
Then
what was the first time you went live like? When was the first time you went live? What did you do?
Oh, God. First time I went live, I think I was just playing WoW Classic. It had just released. And I was basically just reliving the glory days of when I was a child with an IQ of 5 and just enjoying my life. And it was just like really fun to do that. And I think I had like 3 people show up and just start talking to me, and that was really cool. And it didn't really matter to me what the viewer count was. It was just nice to have an interaction with like one person.
Like
so that was a very long time ago. And I had like no scenes, no overlays, none of that. It was just like a camera in a corner that was like maybe 5 pixels that people could barely see my face. And I was just playing WoW Classic. It was the most boring shit you could ever imagine. It's literally just me running through the barrens for like 5 hours.
You mentioned how people come to Twitch to interact with you. And you spend obviously, I think it would be apparent you spend the majority of your time doing YouTube stuff. Um, from your perspective, how much do you actually engage with your community? How much does your community engage with you? Like what role does the community play other than just like do you go back to your videos periodically and just continue to read the comments?
So, when it goes to my videos, I've got notifications turned on, so every single time I get a comment, I can see it. And I've just gotten rid of any of the YouTube comment filters and stuff. So if someone says something and I don't see it, it's quite literally because the great Satan of YouTube has decided that I'm not going to see the comment. So I literally read each and every single comment. I'm kind of obsessive about that.
Really,
But it's like, yeah.
I'm
Like,
actually
as they
really
come in,
intrigued
just
by that.
continually.
Wait, what? Sorry,
Sorry,
I
go
missed
ahead.
that.
So like as they come in, like even your older videos, like anytime you get a comment, you get a notification, you go and you read it.
Yes.
Do you find that to be a healthy experience?
Surprisingly, yes.
Really,
Okay.
I find that super interesting.
Okay, that might be because I have some form of brain damage that's just completely undiagnosed. But usually, if it's like an interesting comment or something I didn't know or something like that, I'm happy to reply to that. And if I get a negative comment and someone's just trying to be an asshole, that's even more fun. That's super exciting to me because now I get to fuck with someone for the day.
I mean, that's probably a good attitude. I know for myself, when I haven't done like a lot of YouTube myself, but I've been featured in other people's YouTube videos quite a bit. And maybe I'm just a little too sensitive, but I get comments about my appearance sometimes. I get comments about the way I sound. I get comments about the fact that I'm a dad. I start to take things like a little bit personally after a while. Usually at the beginning, it was really hard. And then slowly I've kind of become a little bit more impervious to it. But I've actually stopped reading the comments as much because I feel like it's not a healthy thing for people to do. Because if where you might be able to go, oh yeah, I'm gonna mess this guy for the day. I like ruminate on that comment forever, and it just bothers me, right? I'm like, man, that guy said something about my appearance or made some comment about my family, and I just get like really bothered by it. So despite my efforts to try to not take that stuff personally, I struggle with that. And so I find it very interesting that you're able to overcome that so easily.
Yeah, I think so. I think you've probably got what's considered a normal healthy mental profile to think that way. Mostly because it's like you'd be a crazy person for something to not bother you to some degree. But it's like I don't know, my life situation is effectively I grew up in a country where this kind of shit is normal, right? So you don't take anything personally, right? People say weird shit to you all the time. And after a while, you just start to like shrug your shoulders and be like, okay, I'll just roll with it. Like, I've had comments about me being bald, about me being fat. Like, none of that really matters to me because it's like, okay, cool. I'm bald and fat.
Yeah, I
Doesn't,
got it. I share the sentiment with that. I used to care a lot about what people thought of me, and especially physical appearance wise. And one day that switch just tripped, and it probably came from watching successful creators that, for lack of a better term, have an unkempt appearance. One of which we're all probably fond of in particular. And it taught me like that's not important. That's not why people like you. That's not why people care about you. And the people who do focus on that, those aren't people you want around anyways. Something I've learned from being in Skang Gang and getting to know these guys and watching how things work over here was definitely the concept of don't be afraid to trim the fat. Don't be afraid to just get rid of people that don't belong. I think for the first year of my community, I put so much effort into preserving each and every person, that was not the way to do it. I cared way too much about each and every single person's opinion, and I've learned to just let it go. Like even now, basically lost a bet, set a goal, and now I have to grow out a beard, and I don't know how to grow out a beard, and your mustache makes me jealous. So
it's the only thing I've got going for me.
the physical appearance barrier has been difficult for me to overcome. and but I'll get
Yeah.
there. I mean, even a hat. I don't have hair like. See, you guys are. I'm in the middle of both of you, right? Sneb's got the 5 o'clock shadow, whereas I'm actually trying to do something with this. And you've got the developed facial hair, and then you're also bald, and Sneb has nice hair. I'm right in between the two of you. I have the like military high fade, and I don't know what to do with it, so I just wear a hat all the time. So I'm learning.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
I do think to your first point, you're actually wrong about something there. I don't think it's not that I don't think it's that someone doesn't care about their appearance. I feel like big successful streamers actually play into that. They know how to like leverage that to their advantage. Right? So like if someone's gonna make like a bunch of, for lack of a better term, bald jokes about you, why not lean into it? Why not have fun with it? Why not enjoy it? It's not personal. Most things on the internet are an illusion anyway, so you might as well have fun with it and not take it like personally. So
Reminds me
I
of a
think
stream
they
I've
don't.
seen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So like I don't think they even just ignore it or pretend it's not happening. They're like, I can take advantage of this. Like yeah, if you don't take yourself like seriously all the time, it's really easy to just be like, yeah, fuck it. Okay, I'll use this to my advantage. I think I've made a few jokes in one of my older videos about God, something about me not being able to run because I was so overweight at that point. And it's just like it's a joke. You're a set piece on the internet. Just enjoy it. Have fun with it.
The first time I ever saw someone really lean into the whole like critique of your hygiene or appearance was definitely Asmongold, because I learned that his concept of time is kind of wild, because someone linked one of his own videos to him, and he pulled it up, and right off the rip he was like, oh, that was 7 shirts ago, because he's known for just wearing the same shirt for as long as he possibly can. And he didn't say that was a year and a half ago. I ended up like looking it up. It was a year and a half ago. So he didn't say 18 months ago. He didn't say a year and a half ago. He's like, oh, that I remember that shirt. That was 7 shirts ago. So it's like one
Yeah.
shirt. He'll just wear that shirt for like 2 or 3 months straight. And yeah, I think I can understand that to a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Asmongold is like an internet anomaly. Perhaps one of the most interesting content creators. If you go down the rabbit hole and look into like everything about him, it's really interesting. The guy is wildly successful. Actually, the one thing I really admire about Asmongold, he's wildly successful, but he's very humble as far as his living circumstance and stuff. But if you've seen the yeah, I don't want to be judgmental, but when I've seen the video, I've been like, holy crap, this is way different than I thought. like he
Be mental. Do it.
yeah,
Don't
his
hold
house
back.
is just like totally destroyed, right? And I'm a bit of a clean freak, so it gave me anxiety looking at it. Looking at the video, there's just like piles of garbage and stuff. I'm like, holy crap. I can't,
when they were
like, I can't conceptualize doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it works for him, and it's part of his. It's just part of who he is. So he feels no shame about it. That's the thing.
Yeah,
so
and I'm not even saying
like,
it's necessarily
a
shameful thing. It's just it's a little bit unorthodox. I think a lot of people wouldn't put that in the limelight. So and perhaps that actually, I would argue that gives him a huge edge, is that because he's so authentic, he's like, yeah, you want to take a look at my house? This is how it is. It's not some social media setup,
Yeah. I mean, in a world where everyone is trying to do everything perfect and get everything right, and oh, my audio's got to be this amazing thing, and oh shit, I better do this today, and someone who's just being himself stands out like a sore thumb. So that makes sense. Everyone's got this I don't know, very sick mentality where they're like, I've got to treat this like this is a production TV show. That's going to be like broadcast, I don't know, through Hollywood or something. And then you just see some normal guy and you're like, hey, he's just like me. I mean, you have to move like 4 Wendy's cups out your face to see him. But you're like, oh, look, it's like my setup. And then, you feel right at home looking at that.
That's what kind of terrified me for so many years to not even attempt streaming or content creation, was this idea that I go to some fancy streams And like I'll mention Hellmasker for this one, that he has more gadgets and bells and whistles on his stream than I've ever thought possible, to the point of being able to like throw a hammer at him and break his defiance bar and it hits him in the head and he reacts to it. And I thought that before I go live, I have to have everything perfect and it all has to work and it has to be fancy and it has to look cool. And I think the majority of the success I've been having is attributed to the fact that I'm not afraid to be like, hey guys, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm kind of nervous and I think I'm pretty bad. And they're like, no, shut up. This is great. Keep doing it. Just not being afraid to not be perfect, I guess. But that I thought you had to be.
Yeah, I think with anything, you run into this like pit of despair when you try to compare yourself to what other people are doing, or think that, oh, unless I have the perfect webcam, nobody's going to watch my stream. I don't think people care about that stuff as much. There's probably some truth to being, audible, right? People probably want to hear you and they probably want to be able to see you or see what you're doing. But there's no rule about all that stuff. It doesn't really matter. In fact, I made a huge mistake with content creation. When I first started streaming, I didn't record anything. I have no VODs, nothing. And I still don't really do that, and I should, which is why we're starting now. But if you went back and listened to my stream the first month, my mic peaked all the time and would just like distort the audio and stuff. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Zero. It was really bad. But I just kept hitting live and like screaming into the mic about this dragon named Drakkar, and people found that endearing in some way. And so they just kept showing up.
I've always admired your ability to disagree, because I think our first like probably 10 interactions was literally me saying something and you being like, nope, I don't agree. And then you would give a very thought out explanation. And despite the fact that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, it was never unpleasant.
That always gets me into huge trouble. In fact, I've had to take a few breaks from content creation because I am just a very opinionated person, and I'm not always right. I just have strong opinions, and I'm willing to have my opinion changed, but I'm also not afraid to just say my opinion even if it's wrong. And there have been times when I've just been absolutely skewered by people online, or when I've got really burnt out because I'm sharing these opinions so much and making myself so vulnerable that, again, like reading all those comments, it becomes very exhausting, right? I think there's a very different, like if you're creating a creative product versus creating like an opinion piece, I think there's like a slightly different vibe to that, and the kind of comments you get and how those comments land or hit. So for me, there have been these multiple times where I've just thought, this is just like, I want to hide now. I don't want to be super public. And this is transferred all the way into the game where I don't think I'm the most popular person in Guild Wars 2 or anything. But when it comes to raiding, specifically on the North American server, I think a lot of people know who I am. And when I go into groups now, there's a pretty good chance that someone's going to recognize me, and it means you can't hide. And so where video games are an escape, they're no longer an escape. So those opinions that you have, they follow you everywhere. And even if you don't want to engage with them, they keep engaging with you. So it's got me in trouble quite a bit, I would say.
That was our
But I'm glad you admire
it. You joined on your alt account, and right away I was like, yo, Snub, Discord.
Yeah, all the time. But have you had people recognize you yet, Rose? Like, I don't know, maybe you're pretty anonymous in a game, but
well, I kind of when I'm making a video, so I do it in two separate ways. So for Guild Wars 2, I've got two accounts, right? I've got one that is like the public facing account where people are like, hey, it's that one autistic guy. I know him. I'm going to send him some mail. And then it's like on the other stuff, it becomes like I get to play it as like a normal player would play the game. And because they're playing I'm playing the game like a normal ass person, no one knows who I am. So I can get like the regular player experience, and then no one recognizes me, and that's quite nice. So I try and do that whenever I can. Oh shit. Hold on.
I was waiting for you to look up. As soon as you said it, I was like, "Oh, great, here it comes."
For those of us that are on the Spotify or maybe listening away, when Rose said autistic, his background on his webcam, it came up with autism awareness, and we were cracking up.
Oh yeah. Sorry, that's a voice activated thing. I don't know where the button is to turn off the voice activation, so that's gonna happen.
Just reminded me of that video that went semi-viral. It was like during the pandemic when nobody knew how to do video conferencing, and some guy had like turned into a fish or something. He's like, I don't know how to turn it off. I'm not a fish.
Oh yes. Oh yeah, that was a cat, I think.
It was a cat, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like in a legal proceeding. He was like a Zoom call for like what was it? It was a Zoom call for a court meeting or something like that. And he couldn't figure out how to turn off the filter. That was great.
Yeah. So I don't. It just randomly popped in my head. He said, "I am not a fish." The name Rose. Does that have an origin story? I kind of know Sneb's. Mine's kind of silly. If you guys would like to hear it later, but where's that come from?
Well, okay, so my channel, when I first started my channel, I thought, okay, this is going nowhere. I'm kind of just doing this for fun because I feel like it. And so the original name was Rose Black Axe. And what I was trying to do was find the dumbest, most boomer name I could think of. And I was like, okay, what are boomers obsessed with? And the first thing that came to my mind was the band Guns N' Roses. The second thing that came to my mind was that they all think that the color black is some form of rebellion against the system when it's like the most common thing you'll ever see. And they all have this obsession with calling a guitar an axe. So I put that together, and then later on I realized this is borderline retarded behavior, so I'm just going to shorten it. And then I just cut the two separate words out, and I was like, I'll just stick with Rose.
Yeah, even the name Rose, you played on that in one of your videos where you wore rose-colored glasses. And
yeah. I also did that.
I'm gonna be honest, as someone who's extremely colorblind, I was really upset to have not been able to enjoy that, and everyone brought it to my attention. And they're like, "Did you know?" I'm like, "No, I didn't." But that's pretty clever.
Yeah, that was also another reason I actually chose the name. You just reminded me, is like they look at the world through rose-tinted glasses. Hence why it's like, anyone who's like a really old WoW player will be like, back in my day, I had to spend 5 hours farming out fucking orichalcum in the Badlands or whatever, and then you kind of like, okay, yeah, good for you, buddy. So I thought it was pretty funny to just play into that.
So I've seen in your videos, obviously you kind of make and poke fun at the Guild Wars 2 community a little bit. I'm curious what your real thoughts are. Like, what do you think about the community?
Community, like anything else, is a mixed bag. There's a distressing amount of positivity in Guild Wars 2, I'd say, compared to other MMOs.
What do you mean by that?
So like most other MMOs, you've got people who are like really fucking mad at the game, and they're always talking about how much better things were 2 or 3 patches ago, or how great the game used to be, but it's shit now, but they'll still log in for 7 hours a day. And one of the things that I noticed is a significant difference between the Guild Wars 2 community and a lot of other games is in the Guild Wars 2 community, I notice people bitch because they want things to be better. Whereas in a lot of other MMO communities, they tend to bitch just because it's bad now and how dare they do this to me personally. And that was interesting. I'd say that you've got some funny people in the community. I mean, I did get death threats for that first video, for the whatchamacallit, the first impressions I did. But for the most part, I'd say it's probably like 95% of the people you'll meet in the entire game are probably positive and helpful, and that's very distressing coming from other MMOs.
You're like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? Yeah.
Well,
it's like walking into a mental ward and everyone is well medicated and being nice to you. You're like, okay, when's the doctor coming for me?
What comments got you death threats? Like, what category of the game, or like what Was it a particular set of comments? Was it about a certain part of the game? Like who got the most angry?
Okay, so there's two people who got the most angry. Okay, I'd say the people who when I did my first impressions, I was like, oh, okay, the Char aren't like, big titty cat girls, so no one's gonna want to bang this. They were very passionate about showing me as much porn as possible. They were like, what did you say? What did you say about my 6 foot tall cat waifu with the barbed penis? I'd love to bang that. And then I got sent tons of porn about that. The death threats, I'd say majority of that came from when I said that Guild Wars 2 is pay to win.
Really?
Okay. I could see
Yes.
that. I could see people doing themselves like that.
So people were literally like, man, this guy thinks that Guild Wars 2 is pay to win. Better threaten to kill him.
Yes, they were like, I'm gonna find you, and I'm trying to remember the most interesting one I found was a guy who tried to trace my IP, found someone who lives, I'd say probably 70 kilometers away from mine, or like where I live, sent me the address and said, I'm coming to find you and kill you. The game isn't pay to win. How dare you say this? You're trying to ruin Guild Wars 2. I don't know. You'd swear I kicked his mom in the vagina that morning.
And that just happened to be someone who's also in like South Africa.
Oh no. This guy,
Oh.
his IP was coming from the US.
Oh, okay. That's wild. Now, when you made those remarks about, because I've been a firm believer that this game isn't pay to win until I watched your video. You said a few things that struck a chord, and I think most people should do. I immediately ask myself if I'm wrong. So what did I do? I watched your whole ass video about what makes a game pay to win, and I think it was pretty good. Prior to that, prior to hearing you talk about it, I did not think that Guild Wars 2 was pay to win. I thought if there's like a ceiling to the amount of progress your money can get you, that it's not pay to win. If it's just cosmetic, if it's just convenience. You mentioned how Guild Wars 2 creates the problem to sell you the solution. Very valid point. And since then, I've kind of begun to understand it, especially having 2 weeks ago embarked on a brand new account. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I am definitely missing out on by not shoveling out the cash. So
Yeah, well, I mean, my opinion is that I think it really depends on what you mean by pay to win. In a sense, everything is pay to win except for Sarah's LCM, because you can just buy a whole bunch of gems, convert it to gold, and just essentially pay for someone to walk you through the game. Even fashion is pay to win. There are
Yes.
people that will charge you 2,000 gold to create like a whole wardrobe for your characters. So theoretically, you can just walk around and people will, I don't know, you could just buy whatever you want. You could buy all the legendary weapons for the most part, except for some Gen 2. You could buy all the materials for them and then pay someone to like turtle tax you all around and do the meta events for you. It's a really interesting problem, I think, in Guild Wars 2 specifically, because it's not like you're paying people. Somebody can't pay to be stronger necessarily, but they can pay. Well, kind of.
You can't pay to be the strongest, right? So I think I need to clarify this point, right? Asking if something is pay to win is a yes/no question, right? It either is or it isn't, right? The degree to which it's pay to win is a very different question. So like if you had to rank Guild Wars 2 to the degree it's pay to win, it's like 1 out of 100, right? So it is pay to win, but it's so mild that no one really gives a shit because it's almost unnecessary to touch those systems. But if you were to compare Guild Wars 2 to, let's say, literally any MMO mobile game out there in the market, those games are like a 20,000 out of 100, and Guild Wars 2 is like a 1 out of 100, right? So I can say, yes, it's pay to win, but the degree to which it's pay to win is like very, very mild, and that's why most people don't give a shit about it.
Yeah,
And that's
a very
perfectly
solid
fine.
point.
I think, look, if you're going to make something pay to win, I'd rather it be done the way that Guild Wars 2 has done it than the way any mobile game out there has done it. And it's like you can then have the argument, well, it's like, yeah, it's a live service game. They've got to find a way to earn money These kinds of things aren't free, and that's all perfectly fine justifications. But that doesn't invalidate the idea that yes, there is pay to win in the game.
Was your reaction to the cash shop in your first video, was that genuine when you were like, aha, there's a cash shop, I fucking knew it, I knew this game was going to be pay to win, and you scroll through it and you're like, this is kind of mild. I can get some skins.
So pretty much you got to look at me like I'm the guy in an Afghanistan cave wearing a turban trying to plan his way through the TSA when it comes to pay to win. I'm very hard line about it. I've been very hard line about it since all the way back in Horse Armor in Oblivion. That's never going to change. And I will, to my dying breath, I will say that things like paying for visual progression is pay to win, and that pisses people off. But I know I'm never going to change. Like, I'm never going to change my opinion on that, because I've thought about this really, really long and hard.
Well, let's dive into that. I'm kind of curious about
it.
Because I would actually agree with you. I think that one of the worst things that ever happened in MMORPGs is that one day they went, well, you know what? Maybe rewards don't really matter that much. Let's just let people buy them. And all the cool stuff, you can just buy. And, there's no more earning anything. To me, it actually has really dismantled part of the game that I quite enjoy, which is the idea that I could walk around and look at somebody and go, whoa, that guy's good at the game. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, if you I'm always going to default to WoW because I spent more than half my life playing that game. If you saw some guy walking around with Illidan's Warglaves, or in Burning Crusade, or someone defeated Ragnaros, went through the whole quest, and he's got the hammer, you're like, holy shit, that guy's dragging a 10-kilogram dick behind him. He knows what he's doing. He's the master of this game, right? He's a god. And then once you take away all those elements of visual progression, you're like, yeah, that guy probably just went to the cash shop. And maybe he didn't. Maybe he's actually the guy. Maybe he is the main character and you just don't know it because everyone else went and bought the exact same thing off of a cash shop. And so that kind of ruins visual progression in a game. And it's one of those soft points where I don't know if you know the idea of boiling a frog.
Yeah.
So you put it in cold water.
I haven't heard that. I've never heard that one.
Okay, so the idea is if you take a frog, you throw it in boiling water, the frog's going to jump out immediately. If you put a frog in cold water and then slowly raise the temperature, the frog's too stupid to know, oh, the temperature's increasing, I should probably hop out. And before he knows it, he's boiling. So all these kind of pay-to-win progression systems, whether it's visual or not, it always starts with the small things, and then it starts to creep into the things you do actually care about. And so, visual progression was the first thing to go. Then it was all of a sudden, you know what? It's just an extra character slot. And then it's just gathering tools that have no durability on them. And then it's, you know what? Why don't we give these people the legendary armor set even though they don't have it? I mean, someone's going to pay $10 for that, and people do. So why wouldn't they do it? So until people stop doing it, then game companies have no incentive to stop, giving people these pay-to-win systems. So that's just how it is.
It's actually one of the reasons I suspect they made Gen 3 legendaries sellable in Guild Wars 2.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah, because Gen 1, you can sell. Gen 2, you cannot. Right, you have to earn it. You can't just sell the legendary outright. You have to go through these achievements, or you have to do a whole bunch of crafting. You cannot sell the Gen 2s, but Gen 3 you can, and it's absolutely. And I think that they would deny this maybe to some extent, but it's absolutely because it is a healthy thing for their economy, right? Both in the game
absolutely.
actually, and financially, people are going to buy gems, convert to gold. So they can straight up buy the Gen 3s. It happens all the time. And
I'll be honest, I've got the full set, and I paid probably $300. I straight up bought 3 of them. So
yeah.
Well, there you go.
I have
Disgusting.
never.
I dare you.
See, I have never personally done that because to me, the journey is more important than the destination. I think this is maybe a philosophical point, but I think a lot of times in life now, society has deemed that the destination is far more important than the journey. And we forget that the process of learning and growing and getting better and more masterful at something is just as valuable as having the mastery. Because the only way you would have had the mastery is by learning these things along the way. And a lot of people try to skip those steps. And so it's a bit of a dopamine treadmill in the way that you can just go, oh, well, I'm going to pay $100 to skip all of that journey. But I can basically say to people that I've done the journey, it represents a journey that I have not taken. And to me, that's the problematic thing, is because like you said, the grizzled WoW veteran, back in the day, you could see all of these visual representations of that journey. And now everything is a cluttered mess. There's literally nothing in Guild Wars 2 that represents journey, except you might argue if somebody has a lot of the Tequatl drops, or the drops that are very unique to a boss that are kind of RNG. If you have a lot of those, it means that they were there a lot. But there's no representation of skill. All of the raids, they just give you a currency. You can straight up buy the weapons. You're not looking for a drop. And there's pros and cons to that. But I walk around the game and I look at people, and they might have like the coolest looking character ever, but it means nothing. It means nothing to me. It might mean something to them. They might be happy about how they built that look or whatever. But I look at that and I go, there's no story ascribed to those things. In fact, this one hurts, but if you were around Guild Wars 2 in the 3-day head start, you got a ball cap that had a little Guild Wars 2 logo on it in the game. And this was the case for years, right? For years and years and years and years. You only had, you could only get the ball cap if you were there in the 3-day head start. So as a character, I would walk around and people would whisper me and they'd go, where did you get that ball cap? And then I would share this journey with them, the story, hey, I was part of 3-day head start. I really enjoyed the game. And then one day they just went, oh, we're just going to give it to everyone. And now everyone has the ball cap. And, and you know what?
And now it means nothing.
I stopped wearing the ball cap because the ball cap doesn't mean anything anymore. And I don't know. I mean, I still wear it every now and again, but it's just, it just destroys that authenticity and that story involved with those items. Yeah,
the word you're looking for is novelty, right?
Yeah, there's no novelty.
So it removes novelty from things. So the best way I can think to describe this is probably going back to WoW, and one of my favorite mounts that I ever earned was the Ironbound Proto Drake from Ulduar, right? And the reason I loved that mount so much wasn't because of the actual mount. It did look cool as fuck, but what I whenever I equipped that mount, whenever I was using that mount in WoW, what I was remembering was the hours and the effort and the energy I put in getting my way through Ulduar with my friends and everyone else that was there, the battle I had to go through, the arguments I had because I was the main healer going through that, being everyone's mom, being like, please don't stand in the big red circle that's dropping on the ground. You're gonna die. I can't heal that fast. I'm not Beethoven. I can only hit so many people at once. And things like that made it memorable. It made it fun. It made it enjoyable. And because there's none of that attached to the thing that you're just buying off a cash shop, I would even argue the people that buy stuff off of the cash shop, it doesn't mean nearly as much as if they had fought and earned their way through it. They're just oh, cool, I've got this thing that I'm going to equip, and next week I'm going to forget, and I'm going to wait for the next new thing that looks cool on the cash shop. Because it's got a lower perceived value. Because there's no novelty, there's no memory behind it.
I think Guild Wars 2 did do a decent job at taking the majority of high-end endgame things and not letting you buy them, like armor, the all the accessories, trinkets. For the most part, they did a good job. Having only weapons be purchasable for legendaries, I think is a fair trade. They're obviously going to monetize it. Like Blue Jay had just said in chat, they were thinking that you would either work for the gold or work for the weapon. No, they definitely knew that people were going to buy it. They made that system of being able to buy gems and convert it to gold, which people probably do in mass amounts every single day. That's probably a huge part of their income. So luckily,
Oh yeah,
most of the content is not purchasable. So I do like that. But you're
yes.
right
Like I
as
said,
far
it's like
as
it's. Sorry, go for it.
oh, you're right as far as saying pay to win is a yes or no. It's a yes or no answer. I would have previously said no. You've kind of opened my eyes to saying, okay, yeah, it is. And I further learned that lesson by starting over because I gotta admit, I've had the account for 2 weeks and I've already probably spent like $85 on all the quality of life things that I can't live without.
Now here's an interesting conversion for you. Have you figured out how much time you saved by doing that? Because that can tell you the hourly rate at which they value you as a player.
That's a good point.
So
The biggest
if
one is
you
that
can,
TP to friend.
yeah, so like if you can take a character, do none of the pay to win, do it all by yourself, figure out how long that took you, and then take a character, use all the pay to win that you can, and get to the exact same position, you can figure out the hourly rate of how much they value you as a player per hour. Because that'll tell you, generally speaking, what they're doing for you to buy back your time from them. And that kind of sucks as well for the second reason of if you're spending less time in the game, but you've got all this cool stuff, you're not really experiencing the full game. So now you've had a lesser experience, you've paid more money, and you might have all the cool shit that everyone really likes, but you don't have the same kind of valuable memory behind it as people who like sat through the game and grinded it out and found the parts they really like and the parts they really hate. You're just the guy who's you bought everything and you probably saved like I don't know 20 hours or so.
So your Guild Wars 2 experience up to this point, I know you had hinted at me in a private conversation. How much have you actually played Guild Wars 2? So we know you made the videos, we know you leveled, we know you experienced. What exactly is your Guild Wars 2 experience so far? What have you done? And lastly, how have you bought anything out of the cash shop?
Nah, bought nothing. So I can't tell you hours played because I'm playing it over 2 accounts and
How's
I'm
that
trying to be
inventory
very
for you?
careful. Wait, what?
How's the inventory going
Oh,
for you?
oh, fuck inventory. Fuck inventory. When people are not sending you bags, oh my God. You know what? I'll admit to this. On my second account, I made a female character, I stripped her naked, and I danced on a mailbox until someone gave me bags. It made my life so much easier. And they did it. They gave me bags. So
I'm
I
glad that
can't
that's
be
a
mad at
thing.
it.
The concept of people send you bags, I think that is the most noteworthy example of generosity that I've ever seen in this game. Is you can't make a new character without someone offering to at least send you some bags.
Yeah,
It's
that's
because the
really cool.
community
I
is
do
trying to
like,
fix a problem that was created by the game.
yeah, I do think that's pretty funny that the whole community is like, listen, okay, I know what's about to happen to you. You have no idea how full of shit your bags are about to be. So let me just save you from that and give you these. It's so much better when you get bags than when you don't. And I do think that that's on purpose. That the Guild Wars 2 devs have kind of done that on purpose. I think it's more under the direction of NCSoft, so that they can you know increase profit and they can go to NCSoft and be like, look, we're making profit off of this game for X and Y and Z reason. But primarily, it's like when you're leveling, you get those chests that you can open, and it's got a piece of gear inside. And more often than not, the piece of gear is just completely worthless. And the thing you're wearing is usually better, or you're going to replace it in like one level. So I think they're doing it on purpose. I do think they're flooding bags on purpose, and I think the community has gone out their way to be like, "Fuck this behavior." If I see a new player, I'm giving them bags. If I do nothing else, at least they don't have to go through that nightmare like I did, which is a very interesting thing to see.
Have you ever seen The Emperor's New Groove?
Yes.
Do you remember that part in the movie where it's like, I'm going to send that guy a box, and then in that box is another box, and then in that box is another box. Well,
yeah,
you know, that's
exactly
Guild
that.
Wars 2. You open a bag that has a backpack that has like 6 vials of some random thing and like 4 sharp talons. And the talons
Yes.
are only valuable if you sell them to a merchant to get gold. And it got me thinking, why have the talent at all? Right?
Yeah.
Why are you making these items that just clutter the inventory? And it's purely to just, create an inconvenience so they can sell you the solution.
Yeah, it might be that. Like, if I wanted to be generous, I don't think this, but if I wanted to be generous, I could potentially say something like, historically, this may have been useful in the game, but the game's changed over time, and it's just like an old grandfathered-in system that doesn't really need to be there, and they've just kind of forgotten about it.
I was gonna
But I do think it's on
mention
purpose.
I was gonna mention Teapot, so it's actually funny that he's here right now. In his first Hero to Hero challenge, I think within the first 2 minutes, he says something about along the lines of make new account, new character. First thing, max inventory size. Buy all the bag slots.
Yeah. I've actually seen that after I'd leveled, I think, about 6 or 7 characters to max level. I then started looking at other people's guides to see if I was missing anything specific, and all of them mention bags. All of them are like, listen, this is going to be a problem. Fix this now.
It's like some random person running up to you on the street and going, "Look, something bad is about to happen." They're all like crazy and frantic, and you're like, "What do you mean?" And then you start playing for 20 minutes, and your entire inventory is full. It's actually a huge deterrent, and that's why the community tries to solve the problem for people. There are literally people that just sit at the new player starting areas and just hand out bags constantly because so many people quit the game because they get this feeling of overwhelm when their inventory is just cluttered with random stuff and they don't know what's valuable. I mean, I even experienced this, and I'm a grizzled veteran of the game. Sometimes I open my inventory and I'm like, what are these 7 items that say they're a part of a collection? I don't know if they're relevant or not. They started trying to mitigate this by adding a text that said, this is only valuable as part of a collection. But otherwise, people will like load up their bank full of random crap that has absolutely zero value, or they're afraid to sell anything because they might need it later. It creates a really big problem.
Yeah, I've always loved the whole like bag epidemic and the generosity associated to it. We had a moment yesterday where finally after 2 weeks I caved and I bought some gems and I bought some bag slots for my new account. And all I said on stream was like, all right, cool. I bought like 2 bag slots. I just need to get bags. And Kit, who's in chat right now, was like, wait. I was like, Kit, it's fine. I can buy them. She's like, nope, I already bought them. I just have to go get them. Like, people are in a hurry to get you. It's not just they want to give. People are in a hurry to give you bags. So that has always just fascinated me.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's kind of like
that.
What's that?
It's kind of like standing outside Chicago, and as you enter the city, there's just a guy who's like, here's a Kevlar vest, kisses you on the forehead, and he's like, be on your way. You never see that person again, but that's just what they do every single time.
So
Yeah,
go ahead, Snip. I got a couple things if you want to go.
I was just gonna say I don't think there's really much else like that in Guild Wars 2, is there? Well, I guess sometimes there are people in the community that will, we've alluded to this. I want to tackle it head on, but there are people in Guild Wars 2 that'll be like, the Lion King meme that it's like, see that dark spot way over there, that really dark spot? That's instanced content. Never go there. And there's like this massive faction of people that will go around and tell people that raids, strikes, all that stuff is too hard, dead content, impossible to get a group, and essentially just say all of these things that then just completely puts people off of the content. Have you heard much about that?
I haven't really heard about that much. I've actually really been enjoying the instance content. I think it's pretty funny because that's when people have a lot of conversations. And on like the second account when I was leveling characters, I'd usually like send a message, be like, "Hey, I'm new. I'm trying to figure out this piece of the story." And some of the groups will like slow down for you and be like, "Okay, this guy needs to like, we'll give him time. We'll wait for him." And then other people, like the response is, "Oh, you're new? Learn fast." And then they go even faster, which I think is really funny. But I quite like the instance content in Guild Wars 2. Maybe that makes me weird, but I think the instance content is good. And I can already see that if you were playing the game in the context of when it had just come out, I think it would be even better.
Do you?
It's true.
I know you haven't. I know you haven't dove into in-game content really yet, and that's going to be a whole story arc that I'm absolutely looking forward to. I think you have a part 3 coming soon. Confirmed?
Yes.
Deny? Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that. I think you said it. I think it was on your Patreon that you're like it's coming soon. So, but on that note, given that you haven't dove into in-game content yet, do you have like a favorite thing about the game, something that stood out the most, something that you enjoyed the most? Granted, like the scope is limited, I get that, we're working in a very small box right now, but what about Guild Wars 2 kind of holds your interest the most?
It's probably the gameplay. Okay. Aside from Aya's fantastic tits, it's probably the gameplay, right? As someone in my chat put, I'd say Aya takes number 1, and they were like, I'd snort a line of coke off of Aya's unwiped asshole, is what they said to me.
What?
Second to that is probably the gameplay, where like a lot of it just feels good and reactive and fun to do. And the fact that like you can be one class and then you switch out a weapon and all your abilities change, and it kind of adds into like the character's build and like the lore of the thing, because it's like you wouldn't expect, for instance, you wouldn't expect a mesmer to take a two-handed sword and wield it the same way they would a staff. That would be mentally. But the fact that it switches abilities with you, the fact that you can switch to an action combat kind of system, all of the gameplay elements feel like really good and juicy and impactful. The second you start getting towards, I'd say probably above level 65 or so, it feels more impactful. Whereas anything below that, the gameplay is probably marred by the fact that you're just untouchable. Everything around you just dies. You look at it and it's dead. But as you get into higher levels, it just starts feeling a lot better. And
I'd say that
then
holds
I
true to
think,
like core game. Once you get into some of the expansions, it's not as one tappy, but you're still right.
yeah. So I think at least as far as I've gone, that's probably my favorite part. And then figuring out, or eventually figuring out, that an engineer doesn't get weapons because he's got abilities that switch out hyper specific weapons to what an engineer is, like the bandolier of grenades or the flamethrower. Right, which is, I think that's like a super cool idea, that it's hyper specific to that class. And if you play any other class, except elementalist, because I'm not fucking Beethoven, any like class has its very unique and specific gameplay type that it's aiming at and going for. And that just feels really good.
I remember watching your very first reaction to your first weapon swap, and you stopped what you were doing. You're like, "Wait, what the fuck was that?" And you did it again,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Did my abilities just change?" Because
Yeah, no,
a
that
lot of
was really
times when
cool to see. I've seen that nowhere else.
I try to introduce people to this game, that's a lot of what I talk about. Is like, hey, your left hand, that's these skills. Your right hand, that's these skills. If you change weapons, you change skills. Because they're always like, oh, I want to be a tank. I'm like, well, sit down. We need to have a conversation about how this works. I don't know. I don't know who in that whole Twitter thread. I don't know if Nike's still here, but went over that whole thread yesterday on stream. And it was kind of fun, but someone said how Guild Wars 2 is, not the Holy Trinity, but also kind of the Holy Trinity, and how it either needs to get away from that or lean more into it so we can have a matchmaking system. But the whole concept of swapping weapons or having the weapons influence your skills, I always thought was really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most fun parts of the game is knowing that it's like, okay, you're not overwhelmed with buttons. You don't have 600,000 things you got to think about on a million different action bars that are cluttering up the screen. You got like maybe 5 things that you're going to use a lot of the time, and then you've got another 5 things that are very situational. And that's like really nice because it's not overcomplicated, but it does give nuance to a situation. I think it's got a good balance of a system that's easy to learn but very difficult to master, and I think that's always a good balance to see in a game. Is it's like you've got five abilities to read, right? If you can remember a phone number and you haven't been hit over the head enough times by your father or dropped on your head as a child, or you know your dad played rocket ship with you and you hit the fan, you're going to be able to do this. But at the same time, switching out a weapon means now you've got 5 completely new things to learn. That's going to change the entire way you play the game, and you're still the same class.
So the whole premise of your your first video touching Guild Wars 2. I know it's not your first video, but your first Guild Wars 2 video, which I've got more on that in a second. The fact that you came to this game with the specific intent of criticizing it. You were trying to debunk what are all these amazing things people have to say about it. How, where can I poke holes to tell people, hey, it's not that great. And the general vibe of the video was, okay, maybe it is kind of that great. Let's flip the script a little bit. Do you have a least favorite thing? Is there something you don't enjoy? Is there something you would change first if you could change anything?
Yes. Absolutely, I'd change the story. The base game story needs a complete rework, because any new player who gets into the game and tries to level up is either going to get caught into the trap of, I just need to get to the next decade bracket level in order to experience some more of the story that I'm not going to remember anyway, because unfortunately a lot of that story is not very memorable. And the parts that are very memorable or interesting, which is like the personal story, you get to a certain level, I think it's 30 or 40, and then you just never see it again. It's just never mentioned again. So I'd probably say the biggest weak point in Guild Wars 2 is definitely the story, especially for newer players. Because every single time a newer player plays this game, if they're like someone who loves lore, who enjoys story, who wants to like get into this game to find out what exactly is this world about, you don't really get to see that unless you go out of your way to read the game wiki. And that's always a depressing thing to know, that there's this huge epic fantasy story, but none of it's in the game. It's all on a website somewhere that you have to look up and go read.
Have you played Guild Wars 1?
Yes. I played a dervish.
Yes. What do you think about the story in Guild Wars 1 versus Guild Wars 2?
I would say that's a hard one, because I played Guild Wars 1 a very long time ago. But I would say the story in Guild Wars 1 was probably a lot more simple and understandable, whereas the story in Guild Wars 2, it's got high complexity but low explanation. And I can see that someone on the dev team was obviously trying to avoid the idea of, let's have one massive lore exposition dump so that this person knows what the fuck is going on. But at the same time, it's really hard to tell a complex story unless there are elements and ways for the person to figure out coherently what exactly is happening. So like people told me that they actually don't like, I think it's the Norn start, where it's one of the beginning stories is quite literally, we don't have enough alcohol, go fix that. Right? It starts you off small, and I think that's really cool. And then you play Sylvari, and it's like, you're in a dream. Here's a dragon. Go fuck that thing up. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? If you've got no background on the Sylvari, if you don't know the story of the Sylvari, it's like a heavily confusing element, because it's like really epic things are happening around you, and you're like, okay, but why? Why am I fighting
it takes you
dragon?
from fighting a dragon to picking weeds in a flower garden.
Yes, exactly.
It's really interesting. I think the Guild Wars 2 story has a bit of a cult following. It's my opinion that the Guild Wars 1 story is better than the Guild Wars 2 story. And the reason for that is actually has much to do with tone. This will sort of dance around all of the subjects we've acknowledged today. But there's a big tone problem for me in Guild Wars 2. In Guild Wars 1, it was a little bit gritty, darker. And there were times when it would sort of break the third wall and be a little bit funny or make a pop culture reference, and those were appreciated. But in Guild Wars 2, I don't find it very serious. And maybe part of that is because I'm walking around and then I see some Norn with bunny ears, a large mustache, and like half naked with fairy wings. And that guy's in the cutscene being like, yeah, I better save that village. So
We all know
maybe
exactly
part of it
who
is
that
that
guy is. We've all seen him.
Yeah.
Shout out Benny.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Benny the Twink. He's everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. But anyway, to me, this actually has a really big impact on my ability to enjoy the story. And then to complement that, the Guild Wars 1 story was appropriately difficult for where you were in the game. The Guild Wars 1 story, at least the 1 to 80 story specifically, the core story, is so easy. It's more of a telltale game than anything else. And I'm not saying that story necessarily has to be difficult, but there's never a point where it's like, man, that boss is actually hard. Like I need to do something to make sure that I can kill this. Or there's no problem solving associated with it. So when the game says, hey, this is a massive threat, like, oh, this is like the scariest guy ever. You go in and you're just like, boom, and he's dead instantly. Or the NPCs help kill it for you. I think it really detracts from the experience. Whereas Guild Wars 1, it would be like, the Char have overtaken the wall. And like, don't open that gate because they'll F you up, buddy. Then you like, I'm going to open the gate anyway.
Like, hurry the fuck
I'm going to pull the lever.
Timer. You're getting chased.
Yeah, you're getting, and it's tight, right? But those things don't exist in Guild Wars 1, in Guild Wars 2. In Guild Wars 2, it's just like, hey, we're going to tell you that this is really hard, but it's really not that hard. In fact, I completed the entire core story without dying on a character with no weapons, no trinkets, no gear. I ran around completely naked using only utility skills and profession skills and completed the entire story without dying. Like
I got one better for you. There's a part in the Guild Wars 2 story where you're dealing with a siege, where Mazdak's sending like a whole bunch of undead minions at like this fort that you've had to fortify, and they make this like really big deal of this necromancer being like super powerful, and if you're not there to save everyone, it's all gonna fall apart. After the second character I leveled to 80, every single time that I got to that point in the game story, I quite literally left my character there for an hour, went and did something else, came back, and it was like, congratulations, you defeated his charging army. I did nothing. It was just all the NPCs fought him off for me. There's no failure state for that. It's so simple that it's like, why is this guy a threat if he's essentially sending 4-year-old children after us wielding pool noodles and we've got an AK-47? Like, why is this guy a threat? So I think the other thing you probably hit on there is the Guild Wars 1 story is it feels more impactful and memorable, whereas the Guild Wars 2 story, it's like if you meet someone, they're probably dead by the next quest, so you're not going to remember them.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I'm not a story writer. I don't know. Like I won't ever pretend to have any idea how to cultivate emotional investment. But in Guild Wars 2, I skip every cutscene. I'm not invested in it. I don't enjoy it. I don't know. I can't pretend to understand why. In Guild Wars 1, I'll tell you what, I choked up at Borless Pass. Spoiler alert, when Rurik dies, I'm like, are you like, what next? Where do we go from here? I'm confused. Like, I remember being like 11 or 12 years old and being emotionally invested in what was happening. Guild Wars 2 just doesn't have that, feeling.
Here's something maybe that'll even add to this a bit more, and I'd be very curious what the listeners would have to say about this. In Guild Wars 1, you're kind of aware of what's going on, even when you don't watch all the cutscenes, because the story is so ingrained in the exploration of the map and all of those things, whereas Guild Wars 2 is so like, oh, there's a bunny, let me go chase after it, right? That you're taken away from the story so much that you don't even really have to think about the story ever. And so the story is very much optional in Guild Wars 2. But in Guild Wars 1, the story is like, well, if you want to get from point A to point B, you kind of have to do this mission. Like, you can skip some of it, but you're generally aware of what's happening because it's guiding you along this journey no matter what. So even if you didn't watch the cutscenes, you'd be aware that you had to do this mission to save this guy, and now this guy is no longer with you, and now you're having to traverse through the jungle and you're a bit lost and all of these things. But in Guild Wars 2, I this is sad to admit because I'm a huge fan, but I don't really follow the story. It doesn't really, it's not really what I'm interested in nowadays. And I have no concept of what's going on. I never have any idea what's going on in the story ever, except I think that in End of Dragons, they did that all right with Dragon's End. But beyond that, I have no clue.
Yeah, I haven't got there, so I wouldn't know. Like I've just been through the base game story. I'm trying to avoid doing anything beyond level 80 until I'm ready to make like videos on expansions and stuff, because I don't want to be trying to like retroactively remember what I thought. But yeah, I can't remember which character it was, but I can remember how I felt when I played Guild Wars 1, and a character died. And I was genuinely mad about it. Like I had to get up and like walk away for 30 minutes because I was like, how the fuck can they kill that guy? He was so cool. How could they do this to me? And it felt like an almost personal attack. And I remember that because it was like, it was an impactful moment. Whereas Guild Wars 2, I don't think I felt that for any character. Even I'd say the most memorable one to me, which was Foreskin, or Forgul, when he dies. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess no more Foreskin for us.
I wanted to refresh my memory. In your Why Do People Simp for Guild Wars 2 video, you while you were showing your dervish using the avatar of Balthazar, you said, I once played a unrelated game at a point in time, and you said with absolutely no lore or story significance to Guild Wars 2.
Okay, yeah, that was just a bunch of tongue in cheek. That was just me trying to piss off the Guild Wars 2 community, because people then are like, what the fuck do you mean? It's the whole setup for Guild Wars 2. And I'm like, yeah, but none of the story
especially since
really
I think
matters.
a lot of us liked the Guild Wars 1 story more. So that was a remark that stood out to me, because I was like, ooh, okay.
Is it just nostalgia, or is it genuinely better? This is something I've really struggled with quite a lot. I think it might be a mix of both, but I just think it's way grittier. It's way more interesting to me. Things seem way more on theme, and you feel really immersed and involved in it. Whereas Guild Wars 2, it's way more optional. And I suppose there are pros and cons to that, but I find it very difficult to follow the Guild Wars 2 story. It's just a little all over the place. There's so many characters, and you're always doing some random thing. And I don't know. Maybe it's just that I haven't invested that much in it, but I don't personally find it enjoyable to engage in a story where it's telling me, like, hey, this is the most fearsome, devastating creature of all time. And you're like, I'm gonna go smash it with a hammer. And you're just like, bam, like this is some god that I'm killing. And you just like kill it instantly. It feels very weird. Story doesn't have to be difficult, but when I go in there and they're positioning this thing as the most fearsome tyrant of all time, and you walk in and one shot it, or better yet, I have an admission. There is a boss. I won't spoil this for you, Rose, because I know you haven't got here yet, but there's a boss where you can literally, it is one of like the big bad bosses. You can literally walk away from your computer and the NPCs will kill it for you. And then at the end, they're like, oh, hell yeah, Commander, you did it. And you're like, dude, I was making a sandwich in the other room.
I've missed a lot of missions where I was dead and the NPCs just infinitely revived me, did some damage, revived me, did some damage. It's impossible to fail in some of these.
Yeah, I would say I'd like probably to add to that. I think the biggest gripe I had, if I really think about it, between Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2 is, in Guild Wars 1, the Char built up as like a serious threat. They're like, this is a potentially world-ending threat that's going to wipe out everyone unless you do something about it. And then in Guild Wars 2, when you can play a Char, you're just like, oh, these are just alcoholic cats.
So you said that you haven't played any of the story beyond 1 to 80?
I would say I've played a mild amount beyond 80, but like nothing significant.
Okay.
Hold on, I don't know if my camera just died there or not.
It froze.
It died a little bit, but that's okay. They're listening. Uh-oh.
Is it working?
There, it's back. Yeah, good. Oh, and it didn't mess up the...
Froze again?
It didn't mess up the template.
That phase. No, just leave it. Leave it like
I
this.
would just leave it. I mean, that's good.
That looks disturbing. Okay, there we go.
It's fixed.
There we go.
That's good. That was a very perfect pose, nonetheless. Yeah, so I suppose you wouldn't necessarily have really strong opinions about what you're hoping for the next expansion then. We know they're going to make a next expansion, but we don't really have any concept about what that's going to involve. I think a lot of people think that there'll be something in the next couple of weeks, given that, Soto's kind of wrapping up. And so I actually haven't necessarily looked at the full roadmap. I know there's a roadmap-ish out, but we know nothing about the next expansion. Do you have any hopes or dreams for the next expansion?
Is this more for me or
for both of you?
You go first.
Yeah, he's not quite there, so I figured I'll take this one. Now, disclaimer, preface this a little bit. I skip cutscenes. I'm not very invested in the story, but I paid just enough attention to have an idea of what's going on. And I know the community, there seems to be two sides to this right here. This concept of, are we going to get betrayed? Or are things actually going to become peaceful? And what's next? We talked about it a lot yesterday on stream, my chat and I. And a lot of people were talking about how they're annoyed. They don't like this concept of friendly demons, and they want a betrayal. But at the same time, if there is a betrayal, aren't we just going to do the same type of story arc again? Aren't we currently fighting against an evil cryptus person to take back the throne? And it would suck to get betrayed and just have a new evil cryptus person, and that's not very exciting. So I have absolutely no idea where it could go from here. I think betrayal sounds exciting, but another thing Teapot said was maybe the twist is that there is no twist, and it's just kind of going to happen as it's being foreshadowed. But where they're going to go next, I don't know. They seem to love wizards and towers, so I think that's going to stick around for a while. There was some teaser images. Sneb, I'm sure you saw this as a Guild Wars 1 lover. That pre-steering right outside of Ascalon, with the embankment and the trees. Yeah. I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful. Obviously, it's not pre-searing anymore. Searing happened. We're hundreds of years in the future. But if it can go back to be surrounding the roots of Ascalon and stuff, that'd be really cool.
Well, you know what? I have a few theories about how the story, the future of the story in Guild Wars 2. I have a few theories. And one of them, we've hit a few of the major motifs and themes that are involved in general storytelling of any MMORPG or really anything. And now I think it's time to go to one that we're all really missing. Time travel.
God, please no. I was actually about to say I can't. I was about to say I can't speak on what should be in the next expansion, but there's two things I hope Guild Wars doesn't fall into the hole of doing. The first is the Pokemon problem. I don't know if you know what that is, and the second is time travel. Because time travel fucks up everything. The Pokemon problem, for people who don't know what that is, it's if you look at all the Pokemon games, right? The first Pokemon games, it's about you becoming the master of, you beating the Elite Four, you finish the game, you catch Mewtwo. Then the next set of games, it's okay, there are two legendaries that are a giant threat. One of them wants to flood the world. The other one wants to bring about mass destruction through earthquakes and volcanoes and so on and forth. And eventually, through the Pokemon games, you go from, we wanted to be the Pokemon master. Then we had to defeat the threat of things trying to kill the planet. Then it went to, now we got to defeat the thing that's time and space. Then we were defeating abstract concepts, and they've got all these legendary god Pokemon, and you can't go back from that. You can't like now reverse to a smaller story. And so I'm hoping that, I mean, you can see this in WoW as well, right? The game started off with, okay, two groups of people are really pissed at each other, and you're gonna fight over things. Then it became, there's this great world-ending threat. Then there's this other great world-ending threat. Then there's Sargeras, this universe-ending threat. And it's like, no, he wasn't actually the real bad guy. The real bad guy is this shadowy void creature. And then it goes on, and then you're in the afterlife, and now you're defeating gods and abstract concepts of emotions and so on and so forth. And the story becomes so big and unwieldy from like a scope perspective that you can no longer tell a good, coherent, unique story that actually hooks in the player. Because if you go smaller at that point, it's like, why should I care about this? I killed the guy that was literally I killed God. I killed God's dad. I killed God's grandfather. And then you can't go back from that. So I hope they don't fall into the story and game creep where it keeps getting larger and you can no longer tell a small, unique, coherent story. Or at least from a gameplay perspective as well.
I saw a lot of negative pushback, and this ties in perfectly with the Pokemon thing. You didn't just go from ground zero to here. It restarted you, and then the ceiling was taller, and then it restarted you. So you start off every game as an idiot who knows nothing and doesn't even have a Pokemon, and then you got to do this next in higher ceiling, starting from scratch. When they started Soto, I know I was one of them where I was kind of annoyed that I'm just nothing and I'm powerless, and it's like I just went from defeating elder dragons to now this dude looks at me and he gives me a dirty look, and I'm powerless to even stand up. And I don't think I was alone in that. It's not fun when new content means, oh, you're useless, you're nothing, you're powerless all over again.
Yeah, I would actually argue that Guild Wars 2, and I'm trying not to spoil all the story, but I would actually argue that Guild Wars 2 does have a very big Pokemon-esque problem. I think you are made to believe like you're the guy, right? You're the commander, and you are so good, defeating all of these enemies, and then they had to do a big shift after End of Dragons because a main storyline kind of ended, and so. Now I think people are kind of generally unsatisfied, maybe because it does have that Pokemon problem. You were so powerful and top of the world, and now you're suddenly made to believe that there's something even that can actually take you on. But again, not a super huge lore buff, so hard for me to speak very concretely about those things. But yeah, I joke about the time travel thing all of the time. But when I did see that image that looked like the pre-searing, I did think, oh, maybe they could go to the scrying pool and just show us some events of the past that maybe we didn't know about exactly. And then maybe we're now experiencing the ramifications many, many, many years later, right? I think could work.
So, yeah, we already have the window for time travel, just not the action. If I can bring us back a notch a little bit to your whole YouTube process, how has your content creation been affected since your Guild Wars 2 video? Like, is that the biggest? Is that the most successful? Did you have like an epiphany of like, okay, this is something I should lean into? Has Guild Wars 2 ultimately had an impact on the trajectory of your creation?
I was actually going to say no, but kind of yes and kind of no, because that happened, and like I did see the view count go up, and I felt nothing, and I was like, I'm going to just keep on doing the things I think are enjoyable, because when I watch, so I've worked for much larger YouTubers, and I've watched them go through the cycle of a video pops off, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, now the next one's got to be amazing, and I've got to be on the schedule and this deadline. And they have like a mental breakdown over the views not being as high, and they burn themselves out caring about these things. So in a way, I was just like, that's pretty cool. I think I'm going to just keep on doing shit. And if people like it, they like it. And if they don't, they'll tell me in the comments. So it's like the process I go through is more me trying to get things the way I want them to be, rather than trying to very heavily focus on stats and metrics and view counts and, oh, this is what people want, so this is what I got to do now. The second, I think you lose some level of individuality in doing the thing you want. You're on a timer and you're going to either burn yourself out or people are going to get burnt out on you doing that thing that they want and they're going to move on. So I'm just going to keep on doing the things I feel are good. And whether that works out or not is like, we'll see, I suppose. But you can't like live your life. I don't know. You can't live your life attached to the number. Otherwise, that's just a very big formula for killing yourself.
I think that's really wise. You mentioned that you've worked for YouTubers. Is that kind of your full-time gig?
Yeah, it is. So I'm currently working for a guy. That like this is my full-time job. Is I work for a guy who's trying to make very unique kind of documentarian style videos right now. He actually works in crypto, and he had a big problem with his crypto channel because the issue is, as anyone knows, crypto is full of scam artists, right?
Yeah.
And he's a guy who's very well aware of this, and he's very self-aware. And he both doesn't want people to come to his channel thinking it's a scam. He doesn't want to make videos where he's just repeating the same shit over and over again. And he actually wants to try and help people in the space. And so I watched him have a full breakdown, shut down his whole channel, and now he's like restarting it back up. He's trying to give like things that he feels is good, from like a very educational and documentarian standpoint that are like actually useful to people, as opposed to let me do the same video for the 100th time and then desperately try and scrape together enough from ad revenue to try and continue living.
Well, if I can refine that a little bit, then like I noticed you'll have like 1 or 2 videos on most games, and now for Guild Wars you're working on your 4th video. That's Guild Wars 2 centric. Do you have like an end goal in mind? Like, do you already have an idea of when you're going to stop making Guild Wars 2 specific content, or just kind of off the cuff as it comes up, new ideas to explore, and then eventually you'll have seen it all and move on to the next game?
So I'll kind of take it as it comes. So what's going to happen is I'm still deciding on this. There's either going to be 1 or 2 more Guild Wars 2 videos. I'm going to be doing other games because I don't want to be caught in the trap where I'm tying myself to one singular game. I think that's a fairly dangerous thing to do.
You taught me the 80-20 rule even as a streamer.
Yes. Yeah. So why I say it's dangerous isn't like a whole you should care about metrics and views and stuff. Fuck it. If you love a game and you just want to play that game and that's all you want to make content about, go for it. But from my own personal perspective, I would find that I would burn myself out on a game from being obsessed with it. And I'd then have zero motivation to keep on making interesting content about it. So I'm going to make either 1 or 2 more Guild Wars 2 videos. I'm going to do other games. And then I'm probably every now and then going to come back for each individual expansion. And then I'll maybe do a focus on the PvP, then the world versus world, then like different elements of the game that I really enjoy and that I think are interesting. And then I'll probably also reference that back in any other MMO that I play further on. Like every time, this kind of pisses me off, is every time I look at the Guild Wars 2 character creator, and then I go into another game and I look at their character creator, I'm like, how the fuck in 12 years have these people not made a better character creator? Like, how is that possible? Right? And so it's like, I do enjoy the game. I like it. I think the best part about Guild Wars 2 is there's no negative pressure that makes you feel like you have to play this game every single day. So it's like I'm always going to come back to Guild Wars 2, and every now and then I'm going to make a video on it. But there's also other MMOs that I want to cover and stuff. So I'll be all over the place
of what some of those MMOs are.
So one of the things I'm kind of in talks with a bunch of devs right now. and they want to send me over a contract, and this might be sponsored, but it might not, because I'm not going to curtail the way I speak about things because of a contract. So if they don't want to pay me, then fuck them. I'm still going to make the video. I'm going to be looking at Life is Feudal, right? Which is a bit of a mess of a game. It's just come to Steam. I think there's a lot of, like, especially with janky MMOs, there's a lot of things that you can like make fun of. And if that pisses off the devs, then that pisses off the devs. Then I'm probably going to be doing another Star Citizen video. And I think then I've got a large project that I'm working on, which I think I spoke to you about this, Sab, where I've made a plan where this video is going to take me anywhere between 8 months and 12 months to do. So at the same time as working on smaller videos, I'm going to be working on that one larger project at the same time.
Good deal. I between you and some other streamers I'm becoming friends with, I'm looking forward to branching out. Yeah, like I mentioned the 80-20 rule, the fact that you have a home base where you build your, at least for me, have a home base. 80% of your content is this. Start branching out 20%. I could see that you can't just obsess over one game, because if one day that game just isn't doing it anymore, you've got nothing else in your toolkit. So you and a lot of other people are motivating me to try other games and get into other games, whether it's streaming them or just playing them or watching other people play them. So it's been a journey.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no downside to it, right? So if you play a lot of Guild Wars 2 and then you try another game, right? And let's say that game is just absolutely dog shit in comparison to Guild Wars 2, then congratulations, you've just realized that you love Guild Wars 2 even more. And if you find a game that does something better than Guild Wars 2, then you just had a better experience than Guild Wars 2. So there's no downside to trying those things out, at least from my perspective.
Yeah. One thing that I find quite interesting is I don't really like a lot of new games. And I don't know why exactly, but
Is it the diversity?
No.
Do you not? Do you have problems with being a black lesbian in a wheelchair?
No, I do not.
Is that an issue for you?
The thing that
What's coming for you if you say yes?
Yeah, I'll get attacked. No, I think the big issue for me actually is that a lot of games don't respect you. They're there specifically to try and monetize the hell out of you. So you buy a game, but you haven't really bought the game, or the game's free, but you actually, it's not really free, you know? And so you're kind of stuck in this, it's like really big problem where every game you try, you're experiencing this psychological phenomena where you realize they're just trying to sell you and abuse you as a consumer. And I like, there's no joy in that for me. And maybe I just haven't played the right games, but I just don't enjoy new games. When I try them, I go, you know, I'm being sold to the entire time. Whereas, so I find myself like, these are the games I play: Guild Wars 1, Guild Wars 2, Warcraft 3, and StarCraft. And that's it. I play 2 RTS games and an old MMO and its predecessor. And that's it.
That's
I don't know how to enjoy new games.
It's because most modern games are not made from a perception of passion. They're made from a perception of, oh, look, that guy's bent over a table with his pants around his ankles. I would be an idiot not to pound the hell out of him right now. That's the way a lot of companies look at it, is games are a measure of profitability, not a measure of passion. So, like, you probably have a better time looking for games like indie games. So I don't know if you've ever played Hades, which is like a roguelike game.
I have.
That was made, you can see, from a very small indie studio that was very passionate. Another good example of a game that could compete with AAA games that came out recently was probably Baldur's Gate 3. because these were made by people who almost haven't become these large corporate entities that don't really give a fuck so much about you as they give a fuck about satisfying their shareholders. So those games do exist. It's just the difference is when you were younger, there were actually way less games being produced, right? This was still like an emerging market, and there were far fewer games. So the games that did come out were generally really good. I know that like in the modern day, Blizzard is the great Satan. But if you go back in time to like the 90s and you play Warcraft 1, 2, and 3, you're going to have a good time because those games were like really fun. They were really enjoyable. You install the game, you play the game, you get to the end of the game's over. Whereas in the modern day, if they tried to make a game like, they used to have this phrase attached to them. Companies like Blizzard would continually be asked, okay, when is this game going to be released? And their answer was, it'll be done when it's done. In the modern day, they're like, okay, well, it's a piece of dog shit, but we can probably make our money back if we release it now and then add DRM into it later. And we can their wallets enough that we'll make a profit off of this piece of shit. So the perspective on that's changed, but there are really, really good games that are being released in the modern day. It's just the pile of shit surrounding the good games is a lot larger than it used to be. So whereas before you used to be like, okay, that's a piece of shit, I'll just take this one here. Now you've kind of got to put on goggles and a snorkel and go swimming in the sewers to find the really good stuff.
I think a lot of that is surrounded to the circumstances that surround your life, not just the game. I've asked a lot of people over the last few years, like, tell me your number one single greatest memory in gaming, regarding gaming, and almost every single one of them go back to a time where they were like in high school or something. Like for me, it was having 12 Xboxes in my buddy's basement doing LAN parties for Halo 2, having a big team battle like all in the same room. Like you can't beat that level of coordination in that game mode, and it was fun. And I could get all of those same people on the same game in the same room right now, and it wouldn't even remotely feel the same, because it wasn't just that the game was good at that time. It wasn't just that you didn't have as many options as that at that time. It was also because I was 15. I had no responsibilities. I had no job. There was nothing stressing me out. The euphoric experience we were getting from that game was not tainted by the other things going on in my life. So I think a lot of people find themselves going from game to game to game, looking to scratch that brain itch, chasing that high that they can't ever find. And when I kind of realized this, at least for myself, I stopped trying other games. I found Guild Wars 2 when EOD came out. I came back to it, gave it a serious chance, and I've completely lost interest in trying other games because I've realized that high is it's not obtainable. So I've just kind of hunkered down and decided to embrace the idea of community and dabble in things that I used to be afraid of. So I stopped looking to other games at all for that same reason. Sneb, you said you don't like other games. I got tired of being disappointed by new games. So I think a lot of that has to do with the extenuating circumstances in your life, not just the way games are, the direction games are going in these days.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I mean, we're all dads, so your time is finite now. When you were a teenager, you just blow all the time, right? That if you played a bad game, it didn't really matter that much, right? Or you bought a bad game, it was like, oh well, I can play the next game or whatever. But now there are a billion games. There are so many games, and there's just this wasteland of trash that you have to just wade through to find a game that maybe is good or that fits what you're looking for. And to do that, you have to sacrifice so much time and money and effort. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't really have the time to wade through a billion bad games. And so I find myself going, well, maybe I'm very particular about my tastes in video games, and I think that would be true. But I find myself in this, and this is maybe kind of sad, but I'm like, well, if I'm happy where I'm at, if I'm happy playing the games that I play, do I really need a new game? Does it matter? I don't know.
You're 100% right. No, look, I think you're right. I do think being an adult, paying taxes, you know, your
Theft.
dreams change. And when you're a kid or you're a teenager, you go to bed, you have a wet dream, it's about a hot woman. When you're an adult, you have a wet dream and it's about someone firebombing the IRS office or whatever your local tax building is. There are those stresses, but I do think, like, even if you're playing a bad game, one of the one of the like remedies to that is probably the community around it. Because if, like, let's say you're playing a game and it's absolutely terrible and you're alone, it's going to be a miserable fucking experience, right? But now take three of your best friends, put all of you in the room and make you all play that same terrible game, and you're probably going to have the time of your life, not because of the game but because of the people around you, right? So community is kind of a remedy for it, because you're all going to have fun just absolutely shitting on that game, and you can still have like a really good time, because the memories you're making is with you and your community or the people around you that you're friends with, instead of the game itself. And you'll look back on that and be like, man, remember that absolutely dog shit game we played? And yeah, you'll be having fun with it. But I do think, yeah, there is also, almost can't help but look at everything with rose tinted glasses, because it's impossible to get away from that. And probably 30 years from now, there's going to be some other teenager who played a game that he really loved when he was a kid, and he's going to be sitting here bitching about how shitty the VR games are now. He was like, now they have all these amazing features in these VR games, but do you know what? I remember that one scuffed, really dog shit looking VR game where a bunch of people were super excited. Now you just get banned because you said hello. You know, that's going to happen. It's just, the eventual progression of every single human being. But yeah, also if you find a game that you really love, then and it's what you want to do, then who the fuck is anyone, me or otherwise, to tell you that you shouldn't play it? So,
I like that you said the community is the solution. I haven't touched it in like 2 months, but I'm constantly being pestered and begged to go back to. I got my capture card and all that PS5 set up, and I was playing a PlayStation 1 game called The Legend of Dragoon that came out in 1999. I remember those characters and those graphics being so cool when I was 9 years old. Now we go back and watch it, and it's a pixelated, blocky mess. There's like 4 polygons per character. But we have a whole room full of people just having like an amazing time re-experiencing this silly old, kind of crappy game because of the people we're surrounded by. For me, the community has solved everything, and it's partly why I'm not playing other games. It might have less to do with the fact that it's the game I'm playing, although this game does a good job at facilitating that. It's also to do just with the fact of being surrounded by good people and friends. So as long as I have this sense of community, I'll probably never leave this game, to be honest. I'll dabble in others and have our fun, but that's only because I'm bringing some of those people with me to experience that game with those people. It's never again going to be me trying a game to find a new game I like. It's going to be me with other people having fun in those games, regardless of if the game is good or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. For me, it's about building. I like building things and making things happen, right? So for context, Rose, like you and I just met today. So for context, the Discord you're in where we're doing this call is called Scan Gang. That's kind of the guild or the community that I created several years ago. The inspiration was I got kicked from a lot of groups because I sucked at raids and I really wanted people to play with.
Nice.
And so I made this and was like, I'm just going to like make my own team. And we had 2 teams, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 8, and then 10, and then 40, and then 100. And now it's about 140 teams. So we facilitate uniting players into teams. And to me, that's building something. There's like progression in that, and that's really exciting. And so I don't know that I would play video games. Like I very seriously don't think I would be playing video games anymore if it weren't for the building community aspect. I think that socialization is a lot of fun, and it really excites me. But I think I would just stop playing games altogether and just build community IRL if I didn't have something like this.
Yeah, no,
Same.
you can't survive without other people to play with, especially if you're someone who really loves MMOs. I know some people really love solo RPGs. You know, their whole day is wake up, jack off, play my favorite game for 8 hours, jack off again, go to sleep. But if like having a community around you is like what you really like, then yeah, that's gonna work anyway. It doesn't matter if it's Guild Wars 2 or another game.
I think that's why you find a lot of these people in MMOs that they talk about how much they think the game was better when it was long ago, like 3 patches before, like you had said earlier in the show. I think they do that, and then they play 7 hours a day because they're afraid to leave, because this is where their people are. This is where their memories are. They've instilled a lot of their identity in the game, and without that, like, who are they in a sense? I think that's really what's going on, is if they leave the game where they have a community, they've built an identity, and they've invested their identity into this thing, then leaving that is a loss of identity. Like a death of a persona, a death of experience, a death of community. And so you have all these people that will never leave because they're afraid that there's nothing else out there for them, really. I've always found that quite intriguing as well.
This game also does a fantastic job at allowing you to play with extremely large groups of people. Rose, I'd like to ask you, because you've experienced way more MMOs. That's your thing, especially approaching them from the with the intent to critique them, which is huge, because you're not going in with a lot of bias, or maybe you are, but for good reason. Can you think of a game that handles the idea of massively multiplayer better than Guild Wars 2? Like, for me, open world bosses, large scale metas, like, those are fantastic, and I've never really got that. Maybe like Ion Online, when you're taking forts in the abyss, but that's such a mess. You have to scale your graphics down, and you can only see the 10 closest people next to you anyways. But I've never come across a game that I think handles the idea of being massively multiplayer better, and being able to, like, oh, you have 35 friends that want to play together. Guess what? You can, for hours at a time. There's so many metas you can do, so many events you can do, especially with CM convergences coming up. Shout out this Tuesday, Sneb and his crew going for world first CM. Lots of very large scale group content to do.
I would probably say in the past, vanilla WoW, not classic vanilla WoW. In the modern day so far, I can't think of a single one that handles it better than Guild Wars 2. Not, at least not any that I've played so far, because a weird kind of metric that you kind of learn playing a bunch of MMOs is that most of these games actually survive off of solo players. They don't survive off of big groups and communities, which is a weird thing to say, but there are a lot of very highly solo players, and that kind of ruins the multiplayer experience in an element. But you also need those solo players. So I think the one with the best balance that I've seen so far is Guild Wars 2. I can't think of a single one offhand that handles that better, at least in the modern day. And back in the day, I'd only say vanilla WoW because it's like that was like the game literally everyone was playing. It was like millions of players online all the time. You could make friendships, you could upset people, you could do whatever the hell you wanted, as long as a scary man in a blue robe didn't come along with a hammer and start killing your character, you were fine.
And we know you love to upset people, so I'm sure that was huge.
Oh, yeah. No, I used to play a game. Me and my buddies used to have this game we'd play where after school, we'd get home and we'd play a game where we would start running dungeons. We'd find groups of people to group up with. And the challenge was whoever we could upset the most and get them to whisper us would win the game. And then someone had to buy them lunch the next day. So we would genuinely go out of our way to piss a bunch of people off just because we thought it was funny. And generally it was quite amusing. It was quite entertaining. But at the same time, that gave us a kind of notorious reputation. And the game was large enough that there were communities that actually absolutely loved our shenanigans. And then there were other people who were like, fuck these guys, we will never play this game with these people. So I thought that was really cool that these almost emergent factions that had nothing to do with the game itself started appearing just because of player behaviors. That was really cool to me.
I was today years old when I realized that there's actually like a big difference between Vanilla WoW and WoW Classic. I just automatically, because I never played them.
Big difference.
But
they've upgraded
I think
Classic a lot.
Three points already immediately stood out. The time frame. So like the fact that there really was no competition, it was the game at the time, and the fact that Classic WoW already has a lot of it. It's not really Classic. It's like Classic after, it's Vanilla WoW after a couple months of updates and changes. I never even thought about that. I just assumed it was the same.
Yeah, and then they put the WoW token in, and they're going to put a bunch of other stuff in, and they're going to be like, guys, we're doing this for player quality of life, but they're losing the original vision that they tried to recapture. It's on a time limit. It's still more popular than probably retail. I haven't checked the numbers on this, so I'm talking out my ass. I'm making assumptions. But I would be willing to bet Classic is currently more popular than retail because retail's a mess. And if you think the story as a new player in Guild Wars 2 is confusing, if you go into retail right now as a new player in WoW, you're going to be so fucking lost. You're gonna want to start taking pills because you're going to think you're having schizophrenic hallucinations. So I would probably say that even Classic WoW, Classic itself is probably on a timer. At some point, it's going to be dead. And you're going to tell because you're going to see all the old WoW videos are going to be released where all the big content creators for that game are going to be saying, okay, this game's dead now, and this is why.
Yeah.
Very well. Let me think. I don't think I had many other things that we haven't really touched on.
I think we're actually coming. Maybe have time for like one more topic. Yeah. we have time for one more topic, then I think we're kind of at the end of our time. But Rose, was there anything specific you wanted to ask us or talk about or just voice to the public?
Yes. Okay, who the fuck on the Guild Wars 2 team do I have to find and beat with a metal pipe who made Elementalist and who thought that was a good idea? Like that was made for like deformed human beings with 10 fingers on each hand. Who the fuck thought that Elementalist was a good idea, and why does it exist? What the hell?
Okay, so here's the funny part about that. Elementalist, you actually only have to press a few buttons to make it pew pew and actually.
Are you fucking kidding me? No.
Yeah, no, I'm being for real. I know. But there are some builds where it is full piano mode, but there are a couple builds where you're going to do really good damage by pressing like 3 buttons. And so
I wish I found those ones.
Yeah, but the issue is that there are so many buttons to press. So it's like, well, why not just press all of them, Like there are some builds where you can literally just camp fire and do like a ton of damage. But most people are going to be like, well, but I don't want to be only a fire wizard. I want to be a everything wizard. And so you're going to press all the buttons. But I think Elementalist does suffer from a lot of perception problems and also just functionality problems. Imagine trying to balance that when there's a billion skills, or trying to create a new elite specialization when you have all of these weapons. And like it's so hard to balance Elementalist that I think they just kind of relegate it to being meh in a lot of things. And I don't know, you probably haven't experienced this yet, but I'm gonna say the thing that everyone's thinking, but no one's willing to say. When I see an Elementalist in my group, I think that player is either an absolute Giga Chad god gamer, or they are the worst player I've ever seen. And
there is no in between.
There is zero in between. The player is actually going to be exceptional, or you're going to have to load them into your backpack, and they're going to be dragging. They're going to be holding onto every tree branch behind you, trying to drag you backward. It is a big
That's
problem.
That's me.
Don't
It
come
is
at
a
me for
huge
this one, but
problem, though.
I put Thief in that same boat.
Really? Oh yeah, yeah. I think Thief is pretty close. Well, Deadeye right now is one of the most powerful classes in the game, but so few people can play it well because traditionally Thief hasn't been that good. So yeah, I would say Thief is probably in a similar boat. But Elementalist is just like the epitome of this, and it frustrates a lot of players because they're like, I want to play Elementalist in endgame, and as somebody who's done a lot of raid training and who's done a lot of helping people build teams, I have to sit the Elementalist players down and go, my friend, you either have to spend way more time getting better at this, or you need to play something else, because this class is very powerful. But if you're not very good at the mechanics, you are going to be punished over and over and over again, and it's going to be much to the detriment of your team. It's because Elementalist has the least base armor and the least HP pool, so the downstate rotation meta is what you're going to hear as the meme, and this is just very true. Like, even very good players, when they're on my team, they die more when they're Elementalist, and that is very difficult to overcome if you're a new team or like new to raids. You're just going to get smushed over and over and over again.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
you can't talk to a new player.
Okay, fuck that class.
You can't talk to a new player without saying the word noob trap these days. Because
Yeah.
it's so
Jesus
flashy
Christ.
and it's so attractive.
It is. It looks good. It's like playing a fucking firework. It looks amazing.
And it's not hard until you get to in-game content, and then you have this like eye-opening moment. Oh, that is one thing I wanted to touch on. So when you're brand new to Guild Wars 2, you're in that amazing state of like ADHD of like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is that? And you just get lost in all the stuff there is to do. And I think everyone who plays this game, at least, more than a little bit, you have this like flashbang into reality where you become self-aware and you start to realize that, oh, this meta is only good for this item. I don't need that right now. I'm only gonna do like everything stops becoming like euphoric and fun, and it starts to get categorized into usefulness of like, okay, I'm gonna do this, then that, then that. Have you reached that point, or is it still like everything is kind of cool and entertaining, or are you starting to see?
Yeah, I'm kind of halfway there, but that's something you'll experience across every single MMO, where it's like you can't help but optimize the absolute shit out of anything. Like, you'll find that everywhere. That's not unique or specific to Guild Wars 2, so I can see that coming a mile away. It doesn't really matter what game you look at, you will find that. You play Albion Online, you'll find that. You play Blue Protocol, which is going to come out and going to fail. That you'll find that there. You play WoW, you'll find that. It doesn't matter which game you play. That optimization element is always going to be there once you get to a certain level of understanding. I think the only way around it is to not take everything so seriously. There was actually one other question I wanted to get your opinions on.
Yeah.
See if we can upset anyone.
Okay.
Go for it.
What's your opinion on PvP?
Watch my VOD last night. I have over 6,300 PvP games played. So I feel like I can speak about PvP pretty okay, at least.
All right.
PvP used to be an absolute blast in Guild Wars 2. It used to be a little bit more competitive. They used to actually have like a little pro scene. They had big tournaments where there was cash prizes. It was really, really neat. And Guild Wars 1 was made with PvP in mind. And I think Guild Wars 2 was even made with PvP in mind. They wanted it to be an esport. It was something that they really sold when they were developing the game. However, things all went awry, in my opinion, when you start adding more and more weapons and more another profession and more elite specializations, you're making it more and more and more and more complex. And the conquest game mode is inherently a little bit complex, right? It's deceptively easy. You've got 3 capture points. You need to capture them to have your points tick up to 500, first to 500 wins. That's deceptively easy. But the way in which all of these things interact together creates a level of complexity that players aren't prepared for. It's not about just going in and pressing 1 and killing someone. It's not team deathmatch. You need to know what the matchups are. You need to know who can 1v1, what classes are favored against others. You need to be able to tell all the different skill animations. You need to be able to understand kind of the meta and what builds people are playing. And the game is just extremely complex. The game really suffered when there was a couple bad metas. There's actually, you need to look this up. You need to put this in a video. You'll find this fascinating. They held a professionally casted tournament with thousands of viewers in one of the worst balance nightmares of all time. Nice. the games would be 0-0, 10 minutes plus in. Nobody could capture a point. And it's because I think it was Chrono at the time. It was extreme bunker meta. Chrono was almost unkillable. It was so powerful that people would all stand on points and they'd just be neutral the whole time and nobody could kill each other. And so there's a video where these guys had been 0-0 forever or something like that. And then one person makes one mistake and goes slightly off the point and that captures to the other team. And then they slowly tick up 1 point and the entire professional team rage quits live in front of thousands of people. They all just drop. And this was like the start of the death of PvP because suddenly nobody took it seriously because they weren't really balancing it or upkeeping it well. They couldn't handle it. They didn't create like leagues, or was it called leagues, or like a ranking system until a couple years, I think. I could be wrong about the timelines, but a couple of years after the game was created. So they had this vision of what they wanted, but they just weren't fast enough to enact it. And now PvP is the cesspit of imbalanced matches. If you try to play PvP, you will be matched against some of the best players in the world.
Oh, I know. I found that out firsthand.
You will go in
the same 12 people every day.
Yeah. So last night I was actually playing with Grimjack, who is one of the best PvP players in the world. He's playing on one of his alt accounts. We were just chatting. He was kind of helping me learn some stuff about what PvP's like now. It's so much faster than it used to be. It's really hard to keep up. But this is where it all went awry. We won a couple matches, and then it was oh, sorry, doorbell. Classic. The dog is going to be real mad. But anyway, we got matched against some of the best players in the world, and I got absolutely stomped. And another really good player got matched onto our team and just said, "Hey," just kind of did some light flaming to me in DMs. Was like, "Why did you run away from that fight?" And is freaking out at me. And I was like, "Bro, I'll just never play this again." And that's what a lot of people experience. They go in, they get put against the best players in the world, they get absolutely stomped, and then they never play again. It's a huge problem.
PvP is the only game mode where I still get DM'd racial slurs.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's the only one. The only one.
It's insane. And we could talk all day about all the different things they could do to try to fix it, but Teapot one time was like, "It can't be that bad, right?" And I was like, "Watch this." I played 10 matches. In 4 of them, people harassed me.
Beautiful.
So we're getting close. We're approaching half of the time. Yeah. So PvP is this forsaken land in Guild Wars 2 where there's just people get really upset. And I kind of get it though. The games aren't competitive. Again, 6,300 PvP matches. 5 years ago, the game used to be way more competitive and it was way more fun. And there would be a little bit less flaming because when you lost, you're like, "Man, the other team, they beat us." Now you're like, "I lost because the matchmaking system put me against 3 of the best players in the world. And the people on my team just installed the game."
Nice.
I jumped into a channel yesterday with a buddy of mine and was like, "Yo, how's it going?" He's like, "Yeah, we just had a 0 to 500 match." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds fun." I'm obsessed with getting I don't like having lopsided balls. I have Conflux on one side. I don't have Transcendence on the other. I want this other floaty legendary orb ball to balance it out. And I have to do, I think, 120 ranked PvP wins during a season. I think I've done 3. So I'm not looking forward to that, but I'm gonna deal with it. I'm gonna do it. So PvP is it's something else. I love PvP. I was saying this in chat a little bit ago. I absolutely love PvP in other games. In Guild Wars 2, I haven't even done like I think 100 ranked games. My biggest issue with it is nothing feels telegraphed. I can't just look at you and have an idea of what you're going to do because, like Sneb just said, it's so fast that the only way to really consistently be good at it is to have like intimate knowledge of that profession and what their build probably is and exactly how would, like when I watch Shorts PvP, he's predicting like 3 skills deep. A thief goes invisible. He waits a certain moment and he goes, all right, and now, and he dodges right as they come out of stealth. It's like the timing and the knowledge required to perform at this point it's intimidating and it's daunting. And
I don't think it's just intimidating. I just don't know that it's possible to catch up, right? I don't know that you can go and learn these skills in a sufficient, like it's impossible to learn this stuff. From a practicality point of view, how am I supposed to go and learn every single skill, like all of this stuff, and then be able to time it all well? The population is just so small that you can't get incrementally better. You get thrown into these situations, and unless you play in houses, which is where you're actually going out and finding people that are at your level to play against, so that you, or just a little bit above, so that you can get incrementally better. You just can't, because ranked is so volatile. You will go into a match and lose 500 to 10, and then you'll go to the next match and win 500 to 10. And so it's hard. The game's not really communicating to you whether or not you're actually improving or not. You're just kind of stuck. At least that's how I perceive it, at least.
Yeah, I'm kind of asking that question because my previous experience before I hit level 80 with my first character was going into PvP and just getting absolutely held down and fucked. It was like I was the new guy in prison and I had the best ass cheeks on the block. Everyone was just coming after me. It was terrifying. I think I spent more time dead than I did alive in most of my PvP matches. And I'm like, maybe I'm just doing something wrong. Maybe it's just because I don't know what the fuck is going on. The only valid strategy I found for survival was run away.
Well, it's actually not at a high level. I learned that yesterday because the game used to be much slower. And so you were able to kind of disengage. But all the really good players, what they do is they play the stuff that is just like extremely fast, insta kill and get out, right? So they're playing all these roaming classes. Not even one shot, just classes that can jump in and out of battle very quickly and very easily, and have a reasonable amount of survivability. See, a lot of people will play like Thief or Revenant or Mesmer. They play, or they duo queue and they play stuff that works really well together. When you do this, it's just like they just pile on you and instantly delete you. And what's the counterplay? You can't run away. And so the counterplay is to have teammates that also know how to play around this. And the game's just not in a situation where there's enough people that can do that. The games in ranked are not competitive anymore. I used to play it and the games used to be at least close, but not anymore. Now I suck.
On that note, in your coming, will you have any PvP in your coming videos?
Yes, in the next one, but it's just going to be very lightly touching on the PvP. Because I'm trying to put my first experience with the PvP into it, as opposed to the characters I have on the second account where I've played a lot more PvP and still got absolutely gangbanged to death. But it's just very specifically my first experiences and my first like observations of PvP. So I think it's like, weirdly enough, one of the first observations I had is the graphics make, and this is the first time I felt this, the graphics in PvP make it far more confusing, especially for a first-time player, because you have no idea what the fuck the guy did to you. You just saw like a blue flash, you blinked, and you were dead. So it's like you don't know what the hell's going on.
Yep. it's hard to know, and that translates into all other parts of the game too. How do you know what impact you're having on anything? How do you know if you did well relative to the people around you? The only solution to that is external add-ons and stuff. But anyway,
Yeah, I don't want to play with add-ons. I don't want to play with add-ons. I've very little motivation to play with add-ons because it's kind of like I had to get over this with WoW a very long time ago, where it's like you play with all these add-ons to the point that you can no longer play the base game without them. And I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah. Any hoozles, I think we're rounding out the time here, but hey, I think this has been an awesome first episode. Grateful to both of you here for making this super fun. And I think we had some good conversations. Go ahead and like shill yourselves. Tell where can people find you. Rose, you can start, and we'll go to Sab.
Yeah, I've just got a YouTube channel. It's called Rose. It should be easy enough to find, or if not, it means that your search history is not filthy enough to find me yet. Got a Twitch channel, Rose MMO, that I stream extremely infrequently on. Trying to fix that, but that's a work in progress. And yeah, don't follow me on Twitter because I never use it.
And I think I'll be easy to find. I'm trying to be consistent in this space. Brand new to Twitch, have absolutely no knowledge or skills when it comes to content creation. But yeah, you can find me at right here on Twitch under sab.com, and hopefully I'll get to know more people as time goes on. This has been an absolute blast and a pleasure.
Awesome. And everyone knows they can find me at Snebzor on the YouTube. And I'm trying to do more YouTube stuff now because like we talked about earlier, it's going to be harder and harder for me to stream with the kiddos and all of that stuff. So I'm going to be trying to do a little bit more YouTube things, but mostly a Twitch kind of guy right now. And then, of course, you can find me in my Discord, discord.gg/Skane Gang. Skane is a flock of geese in flight, and we help unite players into teams. So anyway, thank you both for being here, and thanks for everyone for listening.
Wait.
Yeah.
I've just got one last question for both of you, right?
Okay, let's hear it.
This comes from my community. They said I have to ask this.
Okay.
So if your wife and your mom switched bodies and you had to bang one of them to get them back to normal, which one would you bang?
Sneb first.
I like how you passed this question to me. You know, I like, is somebody holding a gun to my head? Because I think I just say
yes.
Fire. I think I just be like, it's over. Like you can't emotionally recover from this either way. So I would just say, all right, it's over. The life insurance policy is pretty good.
I'll play the devil's advocate and say, why not both?
Oh, there you go. That's the right answer.
That's the Rose answer right there.
There you go.
Jeez. Okay, we're out of here for now. Good final question. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.